All right, friends, welcome in once again for a stretch class. We're going to do a part 1 and a part 2 for this class. And part 1 will be stretches from the legs coming up toward the neck. Part 2, right, after this, will be stretches from the neck down toward the legs. And I'm going to try to offer different stretches on the way up than we do on the way down. I'm still going to have some seated, standing stretches or seated and floor stretches, but you don't have to get up and down and up and down. If that just doesn't work for you, that's okay. I understand. Getting on the floor and getting back up might not be realistic. So do what your body can. Warm up at the beginning of each stretch class, right? We definitely want to prime the muscles, get the blood flow through, make sure that all the cells are warmed up and as stretchy and malleable as possible for a safe, but also a more effective stretch. And not just at the beginning, if 10 minutes in you're starting to feel stiff and cold again, you want to move those muscles, right? If by the time we get to part 2, right, you want to re-warm up possibly. So we're shaking out the arms, shaking out the legs, rolling the wrists, bend and extend the elbows. Just make sure all the joints are moving correctly. Roll the shoulders up, back, and down. Big shoulder rolls. Big shoulder rolls. And let's switch directions, up, forward, and down. Okay, let's turn the head left and right, rotating. And there we go, eyes forward, nice wide feet. You want to sink down at the knees and hips just a little bit here. And then let's rotate the spine so we're not twisting the knees, right? If you're sitting in a chair, probably not very much risk of that, but if you're standing, you don't want to plant the feet and twist the knees. Just from the spine up, a little bit of rotation. Okay? And you can bring your palms together, fists together, or just swing the arms. Either way is fine. And it's not too aggressive, not a ton of momentum. It's just a little bit of swing. All right, I'm not trying to crack the back. Pause over at one side. Nice deep breath. Expand the lungs and the ribs. Exhale, unwind, head to the other side. Nice deep breath. Expand the lungs and the ribs. Exhale, unwind. All right, feet come closer together. And let's do circles with the hips. Hula hoop circles, get the hip joints moving. And switching sides, or switching directions, I should say. All right, and let's march the knees. Waking up the hip flexors here. These are the muscles kind of in front of the hips, right? Right here. And these, I don't really feel them warming up, but I know that they are because they're in this location and they're causing the knee to rise. So we're just warming them up by activating their action. All right, let's jog in place. If you're in a chair, right, you can march the knees. If you're standing, you might get a little trot going like this. And this is about the end of our warm up. Okay, one final shakeout. Move anything you feel like you need to. And we'll start with the calves, okay? So these are at the bottom. We're gonna work our way up for part 1 of this stretch class. If you would like to hold onto a chair, you can. You can push the heel down and back, holding onto a chair, right? Now, if you don't have a chair in your space, what I usually recommend is holding onto a wall and pushing down and back is kind of the goal there. So I'm pushing my heel away from the wall. If you're standing and there's nothing to push on, you might get a little bit of a stretch, but you might not get as much because there's just no horizontal pressure. You want to push backward a little bit. Okay? Keep going there if that's a good stretch for you. I'm going to switch sides here. And I'm kind of trying to do like a place and hold. And in part 2, maybe we'll rock a little bit more. But place and hold, pushing the heel down and back. Breathing. All right, protect the neck by keeping a nice straight spine. Tuck the chin back and look down at your chair or look slightly down at the wall in front of you. All right, I'm gonna come out of that. March the legs just a little bit here. We'll work our way up the backs of the legs here, and I'm going to do an active stretch first for the hamstrings. In part 2, we'll do a static stretch. So this is an active stretch. If you want to do this standing or in a chair, it's fine. Here's what it looks like standing. I like to hold on to something, heel down, toe up, leg swings, and it's not a very high swing, right? I mean, if you're super duper flexible, it might come higher, but the goal isn't as much range of motion as possible, right? It's just get a little bit of tension underneath the hamstrings. And I feel really tight right now from exercises in the previous days. So these muscles, I mean, it feels pretty good to stretch right now for me, but I'm not feeling limber. I'll tell you that. I am not feeling limber in my hamstrings. They're tight today. Slow and controlled. I'm not trying to fling it up as high as possible and as fast as possible. Slow and controlled. That's our standing active hamstring stretch. Did you notice my knees were bent slightly? That's fine. They don't need to be locked out. If you're in a chair, looks like this, sitting up nice and tall, extend the knee and down. Extend the knee and down. Now, usually I like to actually use the hands and cradle underneath the leg and kind of help the leg up by using the hands. Even if your leg's strong enough to pick up on its own, you might overactivate and irritate the hip flexors, which we haven't even stretched yet, but you might overactivate those if you're using your leg muscles entirely. So use your hands if you can to kind of help pick the upper leg up and extend the knee. This one, similar to our standing active hamstring stretch, that's a mouthful, you don't need to extend the knee perfectly straight. It's not a joint mobilization exercise. It's a soft tissue elasticity exercise. So just get these muscles under here to stretch long and then shrink down. Stretch long and shrink down. I could probably do this stretch all day because my hamstrings feel pretty tight today. All right, I'm going to move on. Coming up out of that. Coming around to the front of the body here, these are the hip flexors, okay? This is going to be a stance like this, okay? Parallel feet, step back with one foot. And it does not need to be some extraordinarily big step, right? If you step really far back, it'll be hard to do the next couple of techniques where you tuck your tail. Instead, just make it a natural stride. And then 3 tips here, 3 cues. Tuck the tail, that's 1. Squeeze the glutes, that's 2. And then push the hips forward, that's 3. Those 3 things, tuck the tail, squeeze the glutes, push the hips forward, usually result in a pretty good stretch in the front of the hips here. And I'm just placing and holding. We're not bouncing right now, I'm just placing and holding. Breathing, eyes forward, shoulders forward. I'm trying not to turn toward you guys, even though I always want to say hi. Got to keep my head the same direction as my sternum. Shoulder blades back, nice vertical spine. Looking for a little bit of tension in the front of the hips associated with the back foot. This is my right foot I have back. Okay, to come out of it, tip forward, step forward, and then you want to march the knees just a little bit. As we pull into tension, you kind of strain some blood out of there, right? So it pulls, and then you want to activate the muscles again by marching, right? Refuel, refill, prime it back up. Okay, left foot comes back. It's fine if you're on the opposite side. Again, it does not need to be a very long step. Tuck the tail, squeeze the glutes, and push the hips forward. Notice I'm not doing this stretch in a chair. I used to teach one where I would do a stretch for the hip flexors in a chair, and I was finding that the leverage on my knee was not good. It was kind of bothering my knee a little bit, so I don't even teach it anymore. I don't like the hip flexor stretch on the chair. If you need to not stand and stretch hip flexors, I usually recommend like bed stretches, like laying face down on a bed, or maybe even having a therapist pull the leg up in different sorts of ways, maybe even propping with pillows, and we don't have all that here today. So if you need to do a hip flexor stretch, not standing like this, if this is not accessible for you, we're going to save that for another day. Tuck the tail, squeeze the glutes, push the hips forward, and pause. You might hold on to something if you need to for balance. I'm going to tip forward and come out of that. March the knees just a little bit there, shaking out the legs, shaking out the legs. And quadriceps standing, okay? So this is a standing quadricep stretch. In part 2, I'm going to do a little bit more on the floor for that. Not necessarily the whole class, right? But for the quadriceps. So on the way up our body, quadriceps, I'm gonna hold on to a wall, unlock the knees, and reach back with one limb to the opposite side. So this is my right hand to my left foot, and then stand nice and tall, pulling the heel up and back. Unlock the knee associated with the ground. So my right foot's on the floor, so I want a little bit of bounce in that leg. I don't want to lock it out perfectly straight. I want to get a little bit of cushion in that leg, okay? I'm going to come down and just show you from the side what I'm doing here. Actually, I'm going to show you head on first. So sink down, I'm holding onto my chair right now. Right hand to left foot, and then stand up nice and tall. My right knee's a little bit bent. It's got some cushion in it, good blood flow. Couple of tips to make the quadricep stretch more intense if you want to, or if you need to, right? You don't necessarily need to. That's gonna be kind of up to your flexibility and how often you've been stretching lately. If you've been stretching more often, you can usually increase the intensity a little bit. If you've been not stretching lately, I would go super mild, right? Slow and steady wins the race in the game of stretch. Pull the heel up and back to add to the stretch. Squeeze the glutes here to add to the stretch, and maybe even push the hips forward a little bit. Here's what it looks like from the side. Squeeze the glutes, push the hips forward a little bit, pull the foot up higher for a greater stretch. Okay, I'm gonna switch sides, sink down, and I know if you're in a chair right now, you're kind of missing out on this particular stretch, but there will be more, I promise. You're always welcome to do more repetitions of a previous stretch or others that you know of while you're waiting. Pull the heel up, squeeze the glutes, push the hips forward, all those things. Give a little cushion to the leg that is touching the ground. My left foot's down, so my left knee needs to bend a little bit. It doesn't need to keep moving, but just a little cushioning there. You're welcome to keep going there. I'm gonna move on for the folks who are in a chair specifically. This next stretch, right? I just did a standing only stretch. This next one is a seated only stretch. I do have some for the floor, but I don't have a good glute stretch that I'll do standing. I have a kind of a warm-up glute stretch. It just looks like this. The knee comes up and you pull across. So if you don't have a chair at all right now, you might try this, but it doesn't give you a ton of stretch on the glutes, okay? This one does. Sitting at the edge of the chair, okay? And I'm only gonna do one in a chair for now. And I'll actually show you one on the floor as well. It's a good one for the glutes. It'll be equivalent, okay? So left leg over the right knee and pull it back. Give it a nice hug. Looking for tension on the side of the glutes here. And if you can turn the body to the side. Okay, that'll actually add to the stretch. If you're pulling your left knee over toward the right, you might get a little bit more tension on the left leg, or the right leg over to the left, okay? If you pull straight back, that's fine, and that could be enough for you. But for me, I get a little bit more tension as I pull across, okay? If you're on the floor, right, you don't have to get up and down and up and down and up and down. That's fine. But here's the equivalent on the floor. One leg forward, straight, cross the other leg over, give it a hug back, okay? And possibly even pull across the body, maybe even turning your body to add some tension to the glutes here. Okay, so pulling back and across if you need to. Okay, switch sides, make sure you get both sides. All right, we'll do a different glute stretch in part 2, top to bottom. Today's bottom to top, or part 1's bottom to top, and then part 2 will be top to bottom. Okay, I'm gonna get up here. Take your time getting up if you're on the floor. If you're in a chair, great, that's fine. Working our way up the body. If you're enjoying this video, go ahead and click the like button while you're watching so that YouTube can recommend it to others as well. Thank you so much. Okay, I'm gonna come up toward the lats, the back, and this is gonna be an active back stretch. I'm not gonna do a static back stretch. I'm gonna do the active one. Clasping my hands together, down in the center. We come up and out, down to the center. 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 Okay, so that's the idea. Push the hips to the side to get a little bit more tension along the side of the back. If you're in a chair, that same stretch will look like this. Up and out, down to the center. Up and out, down to the center. And all right, we do have other options for active stretches, but I'm really just offering one option on the way up the body and then one option in part 2 on the way back down the body. Okay, if you know a different stretch that you like though, you're always welcome to deviate, right? You don't have to do exactly what I'm doing when I'm doing it. All right, next up for the back. These are the rhomboids between the shoulder blades and spine. It's also kind of the middle traps, but these muscles pull back, so to stretch them, we want to pull them forward. This is another active stretch, so it's a lot of motion. Here's what it looks like. Clasp the hands together, and I'm gonna push forward and out. It's like I'm stirring a big pot. Forward and out, standing or seated, doesn't matter for this one. Forward and out. Actually, I kind of like the seated one myself today. I don't know, it prevents the knees from doing any sort of misbehavior, right? No twisting in the knees if you're seated. If you're standing, there's a little bit of potential there. You might have a preference, I don't know. Sometimes I like standing more. This one today, I'm liking seated. And my back is a little bit sore. My hamstrings are sore today. My back is a little bit sore. And even my chest. Geez, it just sounds like I'm doing too much, doesn't it? I'm just sore all over the place. So this feels great for me. So it circles like you're stirring a big pot. All right, one more each way. And you're welcome to do more if you'd like. All right, the next one, coming up the body, this is gonna be for the chest, okay? I'm gonna do one type of stretch on the way up, like normal, and then one on the way back down. The one on the way up I'm gonna do today, standing or seated, it won't matter too much. Standing with one foot forward, and we do circles up and back, okay? Sitting in a chair, you're welcome to do this, circles up and back, same thing. The idea here is we're looking for tension from the shoulder down toward kind of the center of the chest area, kind of down at a diagonal. So where do we find that stretch? Up and back usually. Now if you're taller or shorter, I don't know, it might be up higher, it might be back further. We're all designed, right, similarly, but there are some slight angle differences when it comes to finding the right line. So you don't have to match my diagonal exactly, but make a circle and slow it down and look for a little tension there in the chest. These muscles are often overtrained, doing lots of push-ups, bench press, those kinds of things over the years. And yeah, so it results in hunching over with the shoulders sometimes. So we want to really stretch these guys out. Okay, switching sides, seated or standing. Circle, circle, circle. Slow. And there we go. Breathing. All right, friends, you're welcome to do more of that if you would like. Our next one is going to be a shoulder stretch, pulling the shoulder across the body, and I'm gonna make it a little bit different in part 2 on the way back down, but they'll be very similar. So right arm comes across the body, give it a nice hug. If that pinches anything in your shoulder, then pull down and across the stomach, okay? So I'm just pulling across and I'm giving it a nice little hug. This may or may not be felt, right? You might not feel tension in the lateral deltoid. That's okay, right? A lot of people don't feel it here just because it's very mobile and not usually a very stiff or tight, I should say. It's not a very tight muscle group. Usually when people say they have tight shoulders, they're talking about up here on the top of the traps, not this deltoid. So anyway, give it a hug across. And I'm gonna switch sides, give it a hug across. It's still good to do. You're like, okay, if it's not tight, why am I doing it? Right, you're still preventing injuries. We're still maintaining the mobility that we have. We're still giving the muscle attention, right? It's almost like a self-massage. It's Doesn't feel quite as good, but as a massage probably. But it is, it's stimulating the muscle to stay healthy, right? Versus just leaving it stagnant and not giving it any attention, right? Got to give it some care, got to give it some love. All right, pull down, right? If that's better on your shoulder, right? If you're pinching, come down across the chest a little bit more. Shake it out, roll the shoulders. We're almost to the top. Forward, up, and down. All right, here's our final stretch for part one. This is for the neck, and it's gonna be the sides of the neck. Here's what it looks like. My eyes are gonna stay straight forward. Okay, so even if I'm turned to the side, my eyes are straight forward. And I'm gonna tilt my ears. So I'm not looking down at the shoulder, I'm looking straight forward. Right ear comes down toward the shoulder. And it's like my ears listening to my shoulder here, or maybe my ears listening to the sky up there, I don't know, but you're tilting the ear down. Now with the shoulders, what I'm gonna do is breathe in and shrug up, which decreases the stretch. And then when I exhale, I'm gonna reach down toward the ground or depress my shoulders downward and exhale, and that adds stretch to the side of the neck. If this is your right ear, like me, toward your right shoulder, then you'll get stretch in the left side of the neck. If it's your left ear toward your left shoulder, you'll get stretch on the right side of the neck. Okay, breathing in, coming up. And you don't need to hold your breath, you can get ahead of me on the breathing. Exhale, down, down, down. Breathing in, coming on up. Exhale, down, down, down. I'm gonna do one more here. Breathing in, coming on up. Exhale, down, down, down. All right, bring the head up, slow and steady. Shrug the shoulders a couple times. Roll them and switch sides. So I'm gonna bring my left ear toward my left shoulder. Widen up my feet here and just kind of give myself some cushion so you don't lock out our knees. Or you can sit, that'd be fine too. Left ear toward the left shoulder, right ear up in the air. It's okay if you're on the opposite side, doesn't matter to me. Breathe in and shrug the shoulders up. Find tension in the neck and the upper shoulder here, the trap, as we exhale and reach the fingers down. Okay, remember, you're welcome to be seated. Breathing in, coming up. Relieving tension, and then exhale, going down. Adding tension. My eyes are forward, not down at my shoulder. I'm gonna do two more, but you're welcome to do several more if you like. Breathing in, coming on up. Exhale, let the shoulders come down, down, down. And here's my last one, nice deep breath coming on up. Exhale, down, down, down. All right, come up with the neck, roll the shoulders both directions. All right, and I'm gonna shake out the body here, make sure everything's moving properly, right? It's been a few minutes since we moved the lower body and done the calf stretches, so you wanna make sure that everything's flowing still, getting the blood through the body. Everything feels springy and alive, hopefully. Shaking out the arms, shaking out the legs, rolling the shoulders, rolling them forward. Awesome job, awesome job. That was part one of stretching. Video, go ahead and click subscribe so that you can stay up to date on when I post new videos like this one.